Howdy all. Happy Friday. Happy Friday the 13th. I always get confused around this time when it's a Friday the 13th, Russ, because it's like because I've never been a big horror fan.
Oh no.
Because I worked in the movie theater for 10 years and horror movies don't scare me. So it's like I never really got into them, but I always get confused. Is the guy with the goalie mask, is that Friday the 13th or was that Halloween?
No, that's Friday the 13th.
Was that Jason Voorhees?
Jason Voorhees, yeah.
Okay. So there you go. So that's perfect for hockey. Friday the 13th with the mask. And the funny thing is, I had a friend who I was in a Stratomatic hockey league when I was really young, named Jeff Berkowitz, and I believe he lived in Voorhees, New Jersey, and that was the only thing. It was that I wonder how that's how Jason Voorhees got his name.
No, I don't think so. But Voorhees, New Jersey is where the Flyers still practice, so that's funny.
And he was a Flyers fan, so that made sense.
Yeah.
Now we were talking just before the show. It's like I have to say, especially during the summers, but all the time, because I've always been somebody who loves lots of ice in their drinks, whatever they're drinking, is that you never realize how much you are dependent on a household item until it's broken. And that's me with the ice maker in my particular abode. It's the 15-year-old refrigerator, and all of a sudden one day it just stopped working, and trying to get it to work, and now we just basically given up. And I've had to go out and buy bags of ice at the store, and it's like I bought an.
Whoa. There's a thing called ice trays, Mike.
I know, but I use up basically one tray and one drink. I like lots of ice.
Get 4 ice trays.
There's limited space in the
dollar store, and they have that stacker, and you can put the ice trays in the stacker, and you won't have to spend money on ice somewhere else.
Limited space in the freezer. Remember, it's one of those.
There's more room for a 50-pound block of ice than there is 4 ice trays. But how much frozen sauce is in there?
The funny thing is, I buy an 18-pound bag of ice, which is $4. So that's
that will last my lifetime.
That will last me about a week and a half.
Like, we don't even have an ice maker. Like, I haven't had an ice maker since I've lived in this house, which is over 20 years. We were supposed to have one. The idiots buried it in the wall, and they wanted me to crack open the drywall to get it, and I'm like, no, I'm not ruining brand new drywall. But the idea is, I fill up a pitcher with water, I put it in the refrigerator, it's ice water. Anyhow,
switching to baseball, just for briefly, because we had a lot of hockey to talk about.
Baseball, yes.
Whatever.
How are the Yankees doing?
It's early. It's April.
Okay.
Yeah, that's why the Mets will be in third place in the NL East in June, and the Leafs and the Yankees will be in first place in the AL East. But no, I have to say, it's like the Major League season got started in late March, and there were games that were snowed out, there were games that were rained out. The weather has been pretty brutal, and thankfully,
really cold at Citi Field.
Yeah, and I don't know. And Kaya agrees with me. I'll just go on. The schedulers, I think, had the idea of, okay, let's start these series in domes and in warm weather climes, so we don't have as many games canceled. But you can't do that. There are not that many cities in warm weather places and domes, so you had games canceled. Toronto, like. The Yankees opened up their season in Toronto at the Dome at Rogers Center. I went to the home opener, and we're talking a full 2.5 weeks after the Major League home openers. I went to the Buffalo Bisons, the AAA affiliate of the Blue Jays, their home opener yesterday, and it was 45 degrees, and the rain was coming inside. Russ, I've never seen more people when the rain came down scatter for the underhang of the upper deck, and that wasn't even safe because the rain was coming in sideways and hitting them.
Oh.
So it was like 40, cold rain, wind coming off the lake. And I mean, I lasted about 3 innings and said, forget it. I'm going someplace where I can get a bowl of soup and warm up. I don't know what the solution is, but
the solution is it's a very simple solution. We've all talked about it. You open up these games as far away from the East Coast as you can and start gradually migrating to the East Coast as the weather gets better to the start of the season. That's what you do. Because like I said before, Kaya got all barky. Citi Field was cold. I mean, it was like 45 degrees. It was, bearable, but it wasn't nice baseball weather by any stretch. Not that April weather is ever perfect, but you're guaranteed when you're doing it at the end of March to have at least 10 degrees colder every year. So that's just silly. There's domes. There's a lot of other places that should get utilized.
And I think MLB did their best to start the season like in Tampa and Toronto and Miami, whatever possible. But you can't do that for everybody. And there are games that are going to be played in Cincinnati and Chicago, and those are the games that ended up getting snowed out or rained out. So, all right, let's get started with the hockey talk. We'll be joined by Peter Tessier at any moment now. It'll be what's that?
I said, will we?
He said he would, so I'll take him at his word.
Till I see him. Okay.
Yes, until we see. Hello, Hockey World. Today is Friday, April 13th, 2018.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
And I'm Michael Agello, and this is the HockeyBuzzcast here on HockeyBuzz.com. Well, we had 5 games last night in the NHL. We'll discuss all of them and the 3 games that are scheduled tonight and some off the ice happenings. We'll wait to talk about the I think the game of the night until Peter gets on. So let's start with Tampa Bay and New Jersey, a 5-2 victory for the Lightning. I saw some of this game, but I was concentrating mostly on Toronto and Boston. And the general impression that I got, Russ, was this was men playing boys because Tampa jumped out. Jersey came back. I think they made it 3-2.
It was 3-2.
Yeah.
Here's the thing, though. A couple of things. I mean, I think they were right to play Keith Kincaid, but if you're going to play Keith Kincaid, you should have your best defense in front of him. Why in the heck was Merkel Mueller there instead of Damon Severson? There's no good reason for that. Nope. There's nowhere where I see that Damon Severson's injured. I get that there was a time in the year where he was struggling a little bit, but he's been really good the second half of the year. He runs part of your power play, even if it's your second power play now. He's a top 4 guy. You had Merkel Mueller in there. He looked lost on a couple of those plays. He did draw 1 penalty, but he looked lost. And I like the guy, but he's 23. He doesn't have a lot of experience. This was a case where I wouldn't have played him because I had a better guy on the bench. But this is also a case where coaches make weird decisions for these playoffs based on players they feel comfortable with.
Yeah, Andre Palat had a big game, of goal and 2 assists. Tyler Johnson, Yanni Gord, Alex Killorn, and Nikita Kucherov score for Tampa Bay. Yeah. I didn't come off my belief that Tampa Bay was the team to beat in the East, even though they struggled down the stretch. I think it got to the point, Russ, that they were so far ahead and they lost that lead and almost didn't get the Atlantic Division and the Eastern Conference home ice advantage, but that they sort of got too comfortable in March. Yeah, they got exactly, especially after all the trades at the deadline, getting McDonough. It was more settling in with these guys and getting ready for the playoffs, and there really wasn't a lot of motivation there. But game 1 of the playoffs, they really showed up, and I mean, I think I picked the Lightning in 6. I mean, if they play like this, then it's probably going to be the Lightning in 4 or 5.
But I don't know if it's all going to be like that. I think the Lightning will win the series. I think, like I said, there's changes the Devils could make, and they should make them. If they do that, they can make their defense better. It will help Kincaid because I think Kincaid will still get the second start. It's not like he did anything that hurt his chances. He was fine. It was the defense in front of him that wasn't fine. He was getting pelted for a while, like you said. Yeah. But they did fight back. And so, I'm not ready to just throw it in for them yet, but I get what you're saying.
And Stamkos played 17 minutes, but did not register a point, I believe. Just looking over the box score.
I didn't notice him a lot, to be honest.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like, I mean, yes, he's going to be out there, but is it 100% Stamkos?
He's not 100%.
Right, and that down the line. I mean, if they face a Boston or a Toronto, or if they, in the conference finals against Pittsburgh, maybe he gets comfortable playing at the level that he is, but he's not going to be as effective as a fully healthy Steven Stamkos. The thing is, he's been hurt so much. Will we ever see a fully healthy Steven Stamkos?
Maybe not, but did we ever see a fully healthy Mario Lemieux? Most of the time we didn't.
Yeah, with the back problems, and then we can buy. I know he came back after Hodgkins, but I don't know how much it really affected him because he played at a superhuman level. So,
but he still was always having aches and pains. Best player I can give you an example for any sport that was like that was Roberto Clemente. If you talk to him, he was hurt all the time. There's just some players,
Right. The other game, I'm trying to hold off on the big game, so we'll talk about
Peter, who's going to eventually make an entrance. Okay,
we hope so. The Columbus Blue Jackets and Washington Capitals, and Russ, this was sort of a roller coaster because the Capitals took a 2-0 lead. I think it was Josh Anderson got a game for it. Got a game misconduct and a 5-minute major for a hit.
Yeah,
and there he is. There's Peter Tessier. We're live there.
I got my clients confused. I was upstairs cleaning a bathroom.
That's very, very exciting, Peter. Thanks for sharing.
Yes.
I might only have about 45 minutes here.
No, we're good. We're good. We'll be done at 11. We already talked about Devils and Lightning. We're talking about the Blue Jackets and the Capitals. The Capitals jumped out early 2-0. I believe both goals were on the power play after Anderson's 5-minute and a game misconduct for a hit. The Blue Jackets came back. They weathered the storm. They came back. They tied the game. Washington took the lead again. They tied the game again. And then Artemi Panarin, Russ, again, where's Anton Forsberg?
Teams, I've been talking about it. And until Alex Ovechkin really shows up in the playoffs, Panarin is the best player on both teams. Now, Kuznetsov did show up. I did wonder if we were going to see him, and he did. He did. But, again, these strange coaching decisions. Peter, I brought up, the Devils had Mirko Mueller in there instead of Damon Severson. Makes no sense. Why is Yerabek in there at all? They just pick him up in February from the Canadiens. He's in there he's in there in overtime. This is a guy who you haven't even had there most of the year. You have him in there at crunch time. Him and Orlov are just basically watching Panarin. At least if you had a guy like Madison Bowie who has mobility and a physical nature and can really move the puck, you might have been able to change the course of Panarin. He made that almost a trick shot. He had so much room. That, to me, is an egregious coaching mistake.
Sure. And, I mean, it's just not recognizing who's on the ice.
Yeah.
And the fact that you bring up the key point, Russ, was mobility. Panarin made that look way too easy.
He did.
And that was inexcusable. So, I mean, going back to this, the way that Columbus clawed back into the series or into the game and how they won it in overtime, and it was a trick shot, but it was a shot that should have been stopped too.
Yeah,
and you've got exactly what we've talked about for the last week. You have a situation where do you start questioning Grubauer, and now you have to go, and at what point do you have to go back to Holtby? Because
that game wasn't Grubauer's fault.
Well, I know, but it's still the same problem. Is they lost 4-3. He still gave up 4 goals, and and now, so if you started Holtby and you gave up 4, it's an easy decision.
Right.
Now it's a difficult one.
I would still go with Holtby, even though it's not Grubauer's fault, because I'm hoping that Holtby can maybe get a shutout because, but again, Columbus still struggled for offense many times in that game. They did. They did get it at the right times, but they still were struggling. I still don't think they have the best offensive lineup in there yet, but that's okay. They won the game. The Caps are in trouble, though, and Trotz is in trouble.
Well, I mean, Milano may get in the lineup now because Alexander Wenberg got hurt during the game and
That's
did
a
not
shame.
return.
That's the way he's going to get in because he's been scoring goals for them, and that's who I was getting at. You know that, yeah.
Right? But look, looking at the time on ice, Ovechkin led all forwards with over almost 26 minutes. He had 4 shots on goal, not a point. I mean, it was mostly their offense mostly came from Kuznetsov with the 2 power play goals. Carlson had 3 assists.
Yep.
Again, it's like, if it's not the power play, I mean, they got an even strength goal from Devontae Smith-Pelly. They need to score 5-on-5. But, from what I saw of that game, and it was limited, but I thought Bobrovsky played pretty well.
And I thought one goal he'd like to have back, but
yeah. But I mean, and I picked Columbus in this series. I think that they can, barring the fact if they, any kind of major injuries, I think they can take this series. And the question is now, do they go back to Holtby in game 2? And if they go to Holtby, they can't go back to Grubauer again, can they?
If they go to Holtby, they stay with Holtby. Yeah. I would go to Holtby in game 2. I do want to say that Seth Jones goal was great, and he was on my Norris ballot, and I felt like he's really had just an amazing second half of the season. He's been good all year, but the second half he's been red hot, and he's still showing it. I think we don't give Columbus's defense enough credit.
Yeah,
we have talked about it, but their defense is really good, and Tortorella's doing a really good job with those guys. But again, if Columbus doesn't get Panarin in this trade, I don't know if they win this series. Like, it's literally, to me, it's boiling down to that.
Well, I mean, I think the dilemma for Jarmo Kekalainen this summer is, can you get Panarin locked up long term? I mean, I don't know what I know he's playing great, but I don't know if he likes it in Columbus or if he wants to test unrestricted free agency in the summer of 2019. But
I would sit him and Bobrovsky down in the same room and see if I can knock them both out at the same time. That's what I would try and do.
That's what I agree with that. And the danger is that for a player like Panarin and anyone else who's going to be a free agent next summer, is that might be your last summer to cash in on the contract terms of the CBA this time, as opposed to the next one, which is going to be, who knows what it's going to be, but there's going to be some taking back from the owners in some capacity.
Yeah, I mean, there are certain teams that want to get certain young players signed to 8-year deals because the 8-year deal may not be a possible in the new CBA. I have a feeling that the length of contract might be a target of the owners in terms of maybe lessening it. But some people, some teams want 8-year deals for these players.
I think a lot of teams want them. The problem with the 8-year deal and more is that GMs have gotten smarter. And they realize that if we put the 8-year deal starting at age 22, 23, we get them through their prime rather than trying to do it at 29, which was the mistake before, and going into 37. Yeah. That's the key, right? So I don't know if the 8-year deal is the issue. I think there's going to be terms within those contract things, but we've got 2 years to talk about that.
Yeah, and we'll see the ramifications of that this summer with Tavares. I mean, I think Tavares is such a top line player. He's going to get the 7-year deal from another team no matter what, because that's how good of a player he is. But a guy like Van Riemsdyk, who is a really good winger and a 30-goal scorer, he's 28 going on 29, and he's getting slower, and that might limit his ability to get a 7-year deal, but he probably can get a 5 or 6-year deal. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about that in the offseason. Let's talk about the game that I watched and I think everybody was focused on, and that was the Bruins and the Maple Leafs.
The whole world was watching this game, Mike.
That's true. It was the center of the hockey world.
It was bigly. It was that bigly.
Yes, and I'm wondering whether Leo Komarov is going to get mono today from being kissed by Brad Marchand. It was just but I have to say it played out the way I thought it would in the terms of the Bruins came out and tried to, muscle up and try to run the Leafs out of the building early in the game. They didn't. I mean, they took the lead, but the Leafs survived the initial rush. They tied the game. Where I think this game was lost, and I wrote about this late last night, is that the Leafs lost the special teams battle. I mean, we'll talk about the Kadri thing in a bit, but just talking about the game itself. The Leafs really lost the special teams battle. Boston went 3 for 6 on the power play. They scored, the opening goal, the game-winning goal, and a goal in the third period on the power play. The Leafs penalty killing was, top 10 in the league, but really showed, that they were an Achilles heel yesterday. And the Leafs had 3 power plays late in the first and 2 in the early second period, and had one really great scoring opportunity from Mitch Marner and could not cash in. And if the Leafs don't score on the power play, I don't think this is going to be a competitive series.
No, I agree. I think a couple of things happened. I think it was worse than I thought it would be because I picked the Bruins obviously, but I felt like the Leafs should be able to give a decent fight. Mm-hmm. The Leafs' lack of discipline was a problem.
Yeah.
I felt like by the middle of the second and almost all of the third that Mike Babcock looked befuddled out there. Like whatever message he gave to his guys, they weren't getting it. Nazem Kadri probably deserves 2 or 3 games suspension. That was the dirtiest hit we've seen so far since a guy was already on his knees and he plasters him in the boards. And then, I love how post-game – here's the funny thing about players, okay? Mm-hmm. Players remember everything. But when you interview Nazem Kadri after the game, he's like, it was happening so fast. And it's like, listen, he's like a charging bull. He saw red in his eyes. He saw a chance to get frustration out by plastering a guy against the glass, and he did it. And now they're going to pay the price for that. They will, or they should.
Here's the thing. If you're going to take that run, why are you wasting it on Tommy Wills? Hey, that's the other.
Well, right? Because the reason, Peter, and I'll let you continue, but the reason is, and I'm not justifying, but this was the reason. During the game, Mitch Marner was being targeted. Now, it wasn't dirty, but it was purposeful. The Bruins' tactic with Marner, and I think it's the tactic of every team, is hit the guy. He's not big.
Right.
You're gonna lay the body on him. And if you do, you're going to neutralize him or limit him. And they did it effectively. Wingles and Chara in the third period, when Kadri took the run at Wingles, had sandwiched Marner along the boards, and Kadri had already taken a run at Wingles earlier in the period. And, his explanation was, well, Wingles fell down and I didn't mean to hit him up high. Well, but, whatever. Of course you expect him to say that. Of course you expect Babcock to say, well, I didn't really see it, so I can't really. They're not going to contribute to the NHL's case to suspend the guy. So I get that. But to Russ's point, Kadri, is a veteran on this team, and he lost all composure. He was that bull in the Warner Brothers cartoon with the red eyes that sees Bugs Bunny and goes after him and then runs himself into the wall.
Kadri's logic post-game was this is the problem that I think, and he should have shut up. He actually should have shut up. Was he said, I was already committed to the hit. It's a laughable thing. And I used this analogy on Twitter last night, and it's the same thing. Mm-hmm. I was committed to the intersection when the guy stepped out, so I didn't hit the brakes. Really, Your Honor, that's why it happened. It has no plausible grounds in reality.
Right.
Yeah, of what he did. So take Kadri out of it. Put any player you want in the situation, and they did that.
Right.
There's no excuse.
No.
He wasn't like he was 2 feet away. He was so far away that he had time to see the angle and turn his hip into him. He could have went straight in, used his arms to brace against the boards,
right.
and no, he turned his hip and just boom. So if he doesn't get 5 games,
he won't get 5.
No,
he'll get between 2 and 3.
Russ, I think he's getting 1. I think he's getting.
So then, how do you justify what happened in the Nashville game, and then Doughty if he only gets 1?
Right.
Doughty basically shoulder rubbed a guy, and it went up and caught him on the thing. And I don't doubt that there was a dive. I can't remember who Doughty hit. That there was
Carrier, but I saw an angle where he hit him.
I don't think it was a dive.
No, he hit him on the jaw, Peter.
He hit him on the button.
Yeah, he hit him on the jaw.
I've grabbed my dog harder on the jaw.
No, but to be honest, I think it was a good enough dirty shot by Doughty that the suspension is just. But now Kadri needs to get 2 or 3 games for that.
Well, see, and this is the thing, and I don't know if cumulative effect will be a factor.
I don't think
here.
it does, Mike. I think that's all washed away. They used to talk about it. They don't go that way anymore.
Let me finish. I'm not talking suspensions before. I'm talking about in the game itself, because Kadri, in the span of about 10 minutes, late second period, early third period, knee-on-kneed Rick Nash, ran Wingles behind the net, which I thought, he hit him on the side, but Wingles sort of dove into the board. So I don't know how much was Kadri's hit and how much was Wingles propelling himself. And then the incident where he gets the 5 for charging in the game. So I don't know if they take that into account, or, how many times he's been suspended and been fined for diving and all these other things. But this is supposed to be one of the guys on the Leafs who has had experience in the playoffs, who's supposed to be a leader. And he reacted that way. Austin Matthews and William Nylander were completely neutralized, not only by Bergeron when they were matched up against him, but Cassidy put out Chara and McAvoy, and they shut them down with the exception of maybe one shift and one power play. And the best forward on the ice for the Maple Leafs last night was Zach Hyman. So I mean,
I gotta tell you, Chara was screaming at Kadri after that hit. Like, it was like my grandfather screaming at me when he had to watch me and my parents were away. It was bad. Chara wanted to kill him. He did.
And here's the thing. So let's again, sure, Wingles have been doing some things, but it's still Tommy Wingles, okay?
Yeah.
If Kadri gets 3 games, say he gets 3 games,
yep,
he may very well have taken his entire team out of the playoff series if he gets 3 games.
Yep.
That is inexcusable. And frankly, if you're the coach, you should, Babcock needs to address this in a way that says to him, dude, you just cost this, and if they go down on 4 or 5 and Kadri misses the bulk of those games because of that, and basically the Leafs could have been back in the game, they needed some luck and some help. They could have gotten back in the game, but that killed it.
Yeah, I mean,
potentially take them out of the series, and he needs to know that.
Well,
it's not to hang your head and feel shame.
They were at 4-1 at that time, so I think they were.
4-1. I thought it was 3.
Yeah. That was Corrali had scored a few minutes before, and then I think that was message time, but that was the wrong message. It was basically, okay, I'm going to make myself feel better and be selfish by trying to, maybe he was trying to spark the Leafs. But this is the problem. The Leafs lineup yesterday was totally, and I can't say intimidated, but they were, Boston was the more experienced of the 2 clubs. They came out, they were energetic, they hit everything that moved. The Leafs were able, they were able to respond a little bit late in the first with the tying goal, played well in the second period, but could not get the lead on the power plays. And you were just waiting for Boston to get that next opportunity to score, and they did on the power play. And after that, and I'll tell you, Russ, I vocalized this, or you're
not going to tell me you're going to put Matt Martin in.
No, I think they should. I really think they should. But let me make this point. They traded a second-round pick for Thomas Buchanan, and Mike Babcock before the series was saying, with Thomas Buchanan out there, I can, basically be comfortable with rolling 4 lines and not being concerned with matchups. Well, Mr. Babcock, I'll tell you right now, Thomas Buchanan was responsible for the goal from Pasternak late in the second period. He was a complete non-factor. Actually, I think he was a detriment to that team. And I didn't see at the time that they made that trade that Dominic Moore was significantly worse than Thomas Buchanan. And if it was me, I would put Dominic Moore in the lineup in game 2. But I think Babcock's reputation is tied up in getting Buchanan, and he's going to keep him in there.
I agree. I would put more in there too. Look, the one bright spot was what a great goal by Connor Brown, and we don't even get to really talk.
No, it was Hyman. It was Hyman.
Hyman. Sorry,
Brown was the setup. He was the one that got
the setup on that goal, and it's like it gets lost in this because of all the bad in this game. But I'll tell you the other thing: Van Riemsdyk played a very lazy, soft game. He did.
Yeah. and I believe it was, well, his penalty in the first period was what gave him the power play on the first goal. But I know that you laugh, but Russ, I don't, the Leafs can't win this series if they try to out physical the Bruins. They have to beat them with speed and skill, but you also have to have somebody out there to say, okay, you can't take advantage. You cannot run Mitch Marner without some repercussions. And if it was me, I would have Matt Martin on the fourth line, but they're probably not going to go that way. If Kadri gets suspended, more than likely the move is going to be moving Patrick Marleau to the middle, inserting Andreas Janssen, and probably moving up Komarov to the second line. But honestly, if this game, if it gets out of hand again, the Leafs have to do something to sort of fight back. And I think, if not, maybe not in game 2, but in game 3 at home, I wouldn't be surprised if Matt Martin gets in the lineup.
I mean, I'll say this: Babcock has to stop being stubborn and deviate from his game plan and not go status quo here. Even if, look, he's not going to be able to go status quo because Kadri probably won't be in the lineup. But if Kadri somehow avoids suspension, Babcock can't go with the same old lineup because Boston will just trounce it. Like, he's got to make significant changes. If he doesn't, they might lose that series quicker than we thought.
Yeah, he's got to make tactical changes. It's not just roster. There's some tactical things that have to be done as well. And I'm not, I was going back and forth between a few games last night, and then I went to the gym and sort of had 3 on in front of there and blah, blah, blah. So I didn't watch it with a fine tooth comb, but from some of the things I saw, there were just some awareness breakdowns, particularly on the defense. And those are fixable things, but you got to be aware of why these guys are making these decisions or not making these reads. And you got to sort that out. And that, that doesn't mean the next game is going to be a Bruins, win by 4, but it does mean you can stay in the game longer if you fix those things, as just opposed to saying, well, bring in Martin, get rid of XYZ, right? Like, there's a bigger chess game here.
Yeah, well, I mean, guys, Ron Hainsey has played well for the Leafs this year. He was on the ice for the 2 power play goals. He was directly responsible for the 3rd goal by dumping it up the middle. And that was on the 2nd goal, but he was on the ice for the Pasternak goal too. So he was even though he doesn't get a minus for the 2 power play goals, he was -3 for the first 3 goals, and they needed a guy like Hainsey to be that stable veteran, and we didn't see that. So I'm sure there'll be changes, and the news will probably come down sometime around noon or 1 o'clock this afternoon to see what Kadri gets suspended for. If I had to guess, I think he's going to at least get a game. From you guys, you're saying 2 or 3. I think at the absolute minimum it's 1. I think it's going to be 1.
He's going to get a game.
Yeah, that's
obvious. What he should get is more. What reality is 2 or 3. And even though I think it should be more, not because it's Kadri, but because of the nature of the hit, he should get 5. But this is the Department of NHL Player Safety is a roulette wheel. It's a crown and anchor wheel. It's craps. It's anything. There's no logic. There's no process. There is literally a bunch of guys sitting in a room making it up as they go along.
Yeah.
And it's been proven time and time and time again for years that they have no consistent methodology to rely on to do anything. So for the Leafs fans, be happy. You won't lose them for the series. But if you care about player safety, that's the kind of play you get rid of a guy for a series. That's my piece.
Okay, moving on to the other couple games from last night. Nashville was thrown a little bit of a scare by Colorado early in the game. The Avalanche took a 1-0 lead, took a 2-1 lead, but as the game elapsed, Nashville came to the forefront. And I'll tell you, I've seen some great playoff goals, but that Philip Forsberg goal, oh my freaking God, what an unbelievable move he made. And getting it by Bernier, obviously, but a 5-2 victory for the Predators. And the Predators, I think they're going to have a tough out against Winnipeg. It's going to be a really good series. But Nashville, the way they played last night, they continue to play like that. They're going to win their first Stanley Cup. I mean, they really played well.
I'm not giving them the Stanley Cup yet, but it was a great game. I like the way Ryan Hartman played. Austin Watson played great. Like there was a lot of things to like. The Zadorov goal was pretty good. Like that was unexpected.
Yeah,
but Colorado just ran out of gas.
And they ran out of gas, but they ran out of depth.
Yeah,
I mean,
all of it.
I mean, look, if Colorado had another line, that's what they need. And if you gave them one more half decent line in their bottom six, and they keep that pace up, Nashville wants nothing to do with playing that speed of hockey for a series. If Colorado can win a game or two, they'll be gassed. I haven't seen the Jets haven't played Colorado in some time, so I've forgotten how fast they are. The way they attack the puck is ridiculous. I mean, they are fast. And McKinnon, my God, when that guy gets his legs going, heads up. And it's just like, I've forgotten what it's like. And the Jets struggled against Colorado this year. They were not easy games for them.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because of that speed. They're ridiculous. And no team wants to get in like Nashville's a fast team, but Subban got blown by.
Yeah.
Once, maybe twice. I mean, and not just like, oh, I'm on him and no, he got past me. Like he didn't have a chance.
Like he was standing still, like he was wearing orange, like a pylon.
They're not like Colorado's not afraid to come straight at you down the pipe at full tilt without a fear. And is it a bit of riverboat gambling in terms of your approach? Yes, but that's all they've got.
Right.
And they do it well.
Yeah, I think Colorado would have had a chance to win a couple games in this series had Erik Johnson been healthy and had Varlamov been healthy. Some breaking news here, and we'll just we'll get back to the playoff analysis in a second. But Mike Heika is reporting that Ken Hitchcock is expected to announce his retirement from coaching. So it was 1 year in Dallas. They missed the playoffs, and now they're going to have to go in a different direction coaching wise. Russ, I'm a little surprised because I thought he was going to stay around for another year.
Yeah, but the talk seemed like he might stay around based on what I heard a couple days ago, like just out of his mouth. But I guess. Maybe, he had a chance to sleep on it and realized, okay, this is it for me. In a way, I think it's better for Dallas because I think they need to move on from that sort of play and that sort of regime. I know a lot of people were like, well, it's Ken Hitchcock. He's a playoff coach and everything. I mean, there are some things that probably happened there that you would say, you know what, if Hitch did this and he played some more youngsters and he, was a little more open-minded, maybe they could have won some other games. They did have injury problems, and they did have goaltending problems, and that's not his fault. But I think now it's probably good that they're moving on from him because they do need to change direction.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm not sure who would be in the mix there for the head coaching job, but I for some reason I remember Dave Tippett's name being mentioned, and that as in connection to Dallas.
Yeah, Tippett. I mean, again, I would go. Same way I said,
and had coaching experience as Willie Desjardins. He coached their AHL team in the Texas Stars, and I believe he won a Calder Cup with them. So maybe he'll be in the mix. Okay, the last game.
Somebody did post in the chat room. Hold on, and they could be right. Like someone like Alain Vigneault could end up getting a Dallas job. He could.
Yeah,
there's people who think Vigneault's a bad coach. I'm not one of them.
No.
They think.
He's a short-term coach. I think the longer you have him,
Vigneault was ahead of the curve on some things that we're seeing coaches do now when he's in Vancouver. He was definitely ahead of the curve. He wasn't afraid to embrace some newer ideology that the Gillis regime brought into the Canucks. Now he's there. It's a little stale. He's got to find that reinvention thing of himself. He's got to recreate. Dallas, if they can get Nichushkin back, do a couple things. He could actually be a great coach for Dallas, but he's got to adjust a little bit. He's got to change his level of approach and thinking, but he could be a very interesting guy.
Yeah, Nichushkin would be a guy I think that Vigneault could actually utilize. But here's the thing. End of the day, with the Vigneault, sign him to a 2-year deal. Don't go any further. Don't give him a 4-year deal because I think that's the secret for him. But anyhow.
Let's just finish up with the games from last night. 3-0 victory for San Jose over Anaheim in Game 1 of their series. The thing that sparked my attention was Joe Thornton coming out for the pregame. It was a little bit of tactics there by Peter DeBoer putting up. Now he was skating around. He may not be ready to play in the series, but I think it opened up the eyes of everybody to see him out there.
Talk about second round, and I still feel that way.
Yeah, but they get 3 goals. They get 3 goals in the middle of the second period. Evander Kane with 2. Brent Burns, Matt Martin Jones gets the shutout. Not a great performance to open the series for Anaheim, but I think again, Russ, I think this is going to be a long series.
I still think it's going to be a long series. I mean, Kane just had like the game of his life. He really was a force. Yeah. It was a big deal. I think Anaheim played it a little too safe offensively. I felt like they didn't really get a chance to open it up at all, and maybe they need to do that. I did see some good things out of like Timo Meier and Kevin LeBanc, those kinds of guys for San Jose, and that's important for them because, you know, they don't have Marleau anymore. They don't have Thornton at the moment. So, but again, the one thing I did talk about on a few shows, and I did talk about on this show, we all vastly underrate Martin Jones. We do. We overlook him.
We do.
And he is a really good playoff-tested goalie, and that's why I think he was the difference in the game, and I'm not shocked that he was.
But, you know, here's the other thing of that game, and I watched a bit of it, you know, as I was kind of going back and forth between Nashville and then over to there. The interesting thing is Corey Perry became unglued. And like Kadri, that's a guy you can't have losing his cool and going bananas over things and taking dumb penalties because you actually need him. Like he's a key cog. And he's the guy who's supposed to get the other team unglued.
But he does that from game to game. Like, I think you'll get him back. He does lose it once in a while. There's nothing you can do with that.
Okay, now we'll talk about the 3 games that will go tonight at the end of the show. Wanted to talk about a couple things that came out yesterday. Some weird press conferences and statements made from 2 Canadian cities. One, Pierre Dorion comes out and basically says, I'm going to make a decision on Guy Boucher after the NHL draft lottery. So right now, Guy Boucher is waiting for the gallows, waiting whether to see he's going to be hung or not hung, whether there's going to be a call from the governor or not.
No, but I think that's okay to sort of hold the guy accountable and look, you're in charge. You can do whatever you want with that team. I don't think this is like anything egregious. And I will tell you something else that I do like that the Sens are doing. I like the fact that they're making that pick this year and they're not rolling the dice for next year, because at the end of the day, you make that pick this year, that player gets a year worth of development under his belt. You don't know what's going to happen next year. What if the league stinks and all of a sudden you finish higher than this year? Anything's possible, or you just lose in the draft lottery like Vancouver and you get bumped down 5 spots.
Well, they finished 30th, so the lowest their pick can be, I think, is what, 26th.
Yeah,
they fall.
But again, people aren't doing the math. Like and I was even asked about that on Sirius this morning. They're looking at it like, well, they could get 1st or 2nd next year, and it's like, you know what, the odds of that really happening are not very good.
No, you know what?
People don't realize how bad the Oilers will continue to be.
Yeah. No, yeah. Well, but the funny thing is this. I mean, even if they lose the lottery and they fall 4 spots, they'll have a top 5 pick. That means Hughes or Boquist or Svechnikov. I mean, they're going to get a really good player in this draft. Next year, what this tells me is, because I'm convinced now they're trading Erik Karlsson. This is not going to be a future, like strictly future deal, like 2 first-round picks and a prospect. This is going to be, we need good players back. We need tangible assets back to help us prevent us from finishing 30th next year.
I am not convinced they are trading Erik Karlsson. What they are doing is they are going to let everybody know what the contract is for Karlsson, and they're going to leave it up to him. So to me, that's not a plan that they're guaranteed trading him, because he could accept the deal. I mean, if he accepts the deal, he's going to be a part of that team for a million years to come.
Yeah. So, I really doubt he's going to accept the deal.
I don't doubt it, but there's going to be a deal that he could accept.
Sure.
And that's why I don't think they're in trade mode right now for him.
There is. There's a deal he could accept, and then he's going to get traded once he takes 8 years instead of,
No, they're not doing
that's right. He's not a free agent, sorry. But you know what?
Not doing that.
Honestly, I don't think it makes any sense for Ottawa to maintain him, to keep him. But I don't know if Dorian has the vision, particularly with Melnyk hanging over him, to get the value back that you should get for Karlsson.
Right.
And, the draft was, the trade deadline was probably the idea that said, okay, here's where some people see value. Here's where I see value. I know what's out there now for him. Now I've got it. Now come the draft and stuff. When teams have some space, they're making their plans. They know what they got to change in the playoffs. There's more. He's going in with more knowledge.
Yeah, it sounds to me like they came pretty close to moving him to Vegas, and that's why I'm convinced that, with a second chance, because I don't know whether Erik Karlsson is going to sign a deal in Ottawa for what I think Ottawa will offer him. They may offer him $10-11 million. They may offer him the 8 years. I mean, that's what Dorian says. He's not going to trade him at the draft, and he's going to offer him an 8-year deal on July 1. But what is the 8-year deal? If it's a low ball offer of, say, $8 to $9 million, he's not going to take it, and he
does like it there, though. That is a legit thing.
And his wife, he loves the community. His wife is from there. Those are all definite factors. But I also think he wants to get paid, and he doesn't like the organization under Melnyk and under Dorian, and I think those will be factors as well. So, I mean, we'll see. Now,
one more thing about Ottawa is they drafted really well. We know that. They have been able to produce players pretty quickly, like Thomas Chabot, and really Colin White would be there if he wasn't hurt, right? He would have been there all year. At the end of the day, I don't think it kills them if they are able to keep Karlsson. And I do think at some point they will spend money again when they do get this deal signed up for their arena. So, like, even if that's 2 or 3 years into the Karlsson deal, he's still going to be a useful player. I think that's why they're in this sort of tough spot.
Yeah.
But you know what? They had like a meeting with their season ticket holders recently, and they were pretty open about it. And I do give them credit for that.
Now the other situation is Edmonton, and talk about things being asked backwards, Peter. Chiarelli comes out and basically gives his sort of state of the team type of press conference, and everybody thought, okay, well, that's the last we'll see of them until they make some decisions. And then Bob Nicholson comes out and gives the vote of confidence to Chiarelli and says Chiarelli's going to be back next year, which I'm sure threw everybody in Edmonton for a tizzy. But now Todd McClellan's name is out there in terms of, well, we haven't made a decision yet. We're not going to know what we're going to do until later, probably to see who's out there that we can choose.
It's the old Brian Burke playbook. And Burke did this when he got a hold of the Canucks. And now it's not the first time it's ever happened, I'm sure, but it's the first time I remember it happening. Mike Keenan was the coach, but they didn't have a GM, and Burke got hired in to be the GM. Keenan, in his role as coach, had control over player personnel, so he could make trades. And that's when he traded Linden for Bertuzzi and everything. So the whole thing is Burke waited. Mark Crawford got fired, and then someone else got fired. And that's when Burke fired Keenan and hired Crawford, because he didn't want someone else getting Crawford before he did. So he knew he had time when there was no vacancies there. He just didn't, it's just about spending the money. This is exactly what they're going to do in Edmonton. They're going to wait and see who comes out.
They are.
And I don't think Alain Vigneault is the right guy for them.
No. I'll tell you who they're waiting for right now. I think they're waiting for Barry Trotz.
Yeah, I think they're waiting for Trotz. But two things.
So they're all cheering for Columbus right now.
Yeah. Peter Chiarelli's job seems safe, which, again, I think all of us are surprised at.
That's baffling.
And
who would you put in? Who would you put in right now? Who's available off the top of your head? Other than Gilman, who's there?
I might have to go with Lawrence Gilman, not because he's a bad choice, because he really can manage the cap, and that's been half of the problem with
exactly. They're making trades to manage the cap, not manage the cap so they can keep players. Yeah, it's a good thing. But is he the vision side of a team and the pieces and stuff like that? I think Gilman is sort of maybe
the problem is there's always going to be meddling
doing dumb things.
Yeah, the problem is there's always going to be meddling from ownership and from these older players that they sort of bring along from the ride, like, you know, Paul Coffey and whoever.
Yeah.
And I don't know if any of them has the vision to get them out of this. That's, to me, that's a big part of their problem.
Well, I mean, if all of a sudden Chiarelli was fired, which obviously he's not going to be now based on the statements, it would have been the same list of people who everybody thought was going to be trying to get the Carolina job, which is Fenton and, you know, Julian Brisebois and you know, a lot of Tom Fitzgerald, a lot of those assistant GMs who have been waiting around to get a GM's job. So I mean, they could be waiting around. They could have been waiting around, waiting for somebody else, some other GM to get fired, like Chuck Fletcher in Minnesota or something like that.
He could have been. I mean, I will say this: it doesn't seem like they have a real great offseason plan. I don't see it yet.
Go ahead. No, keep going on that. I just want to take a little tangent here, but finish up.
Well, I mean, the one thing that. And there has been talk, and I think it would be pretty hilarious if they actually did this. But there was one mention that, you know, Milan Lucic going into year 3 of a 7-year contract, that they might consider buying that contract out because
no way.
I'm just telling you what was out there, Russ. And I mean, maybe they could find some team like Vancouver, because he's from Vancouver, to trade for him, and maybe retain some of the salary just to make it palatable. But you know, Chiarelli is the one who signed Lucic, so he's not going to buy him out. That's admitting a mistake.
Yeah, but you know what?
Hey,
you can buy out Brizgalov with that deal. You can buy out Lucic.
Yeah, but Brizgalov
was a disaster to the team in the locker room and otherwise. By the way,
I understand that. I'm just saying.
But here's a point about Ilya Brizgalov. Hold on. A point about Ilya Brizgalov. You know, while everybody likes to laugh at his tweets and his posts, you know, the other day, posting Elliot's restaurant, trying to tell the Flyers like he's available. He was horrible in the playoffs himself. He should really shut up. Well, I don't think this stuff is funny at all. I don't.
He should shut up. But you know what, Russ? He was the last Flyers goaltender to win a series.
I know.
He was just better than Marc-Andre Fleury, who wasn't the Marc-Andre Fleury that we know.
He's a hot mess himself.
Yes. Yeah, they were both terrible, and that series was just incredibly wild.
So we're talking about front offices and stuff, and you talk about Ottawa, Mike, and now you go to Edmonton. You know what's really intriguing to me is that it's absolute crickets from down the number 2 in Calgary.
Yeah.
And I'm very surprised that we haven't heard anything about Gulletson. And I know they won't be getting rid of Treliving because they just signed it to an extension.
Yeah, Treliving's safe. He's
safe. And no, I'm not sure he needs to be on the hot seat yet.
Right.
But I think Treliving has some ability to get himself out of trouble. And the only thing I've heard out of Calgary is that Sam Bennett's name's going to pop up now. That makes sense. That's basically the only chip they have. Maybe Brody, if they can flip him while he still has some value.
Yeah, so I think the move is going to be to move one of the 5, because they have 5 good defensemen. But I think one of the things that mitigated the criticism of Calgary is the news that came out after the season that Monahan had surgery on 4, like his reconstruction on his wrist, both hip. Like, I mean, basically he's Steve Austin, the $6 million man, because he had to have so many surgeries. So, I mean, that you know, and him being at less than 100%, by some miracle, how many games he played with all those injuries is incredible. But you know, I think that has to be considered a factor in their decline at the end of the year. Now, 3 games tonight, game 2s. Russ, just starting here quickly, Penguins, Flyers. I mean, last thing I heard was Elliott's going to start game.
Starting. Here's the quick moves that I would make, okay? And it was funny because I said them on Sirius, and then fans started calling in and agreeing with me. They're very upset, and I don't blame them. Elliott's not himself. And if he is himself, they need a different self. But I don't think he's 100%. Mm-hmm. I would definitely use Mrazek, because there are those times when Mrazek does heat up. Yes. Elliott is not going to heat up. That's one thing. Mm-hmm. They were too slow. Yuri Laterra had a nice little forecheck going, but he's too slow. Jordan Wheel should be in there instead. He's faster. He's better with the puck. And Brandon Manning, while he does bring a little bit of a physical side and does a decent job at time of clearing the puck, he's too slow as well. Robert Hagg would be a better solution there too. But they're not going to do any changes. So this is just like basically you're telling the Flyers, go out there and
try your best
and redeem yourself
Yeah.
for the shellacking you took. And I think they'll do that to some degree, but I'm not sure they're winning this game.
Peter, Winnipeg and Minnesota game 2, game that was closer than all of us thought. Good effort by Minnesota, but the cream rises to the top with Winnipeg. Matthew Perreault got injured in that game, and I know you tweeted out yesterday. Perreault out, Roslovic in. There's not much of a drop off there.
No, I mean, Roslovic does not have Perreault's vision and his tenacity, but he could. And, he's sort of like a Perreault Jr., slight of size, good speed. I think the point I put out was, people thinking that Perreault's out. Well, they're just going to slide on Roslovic. Perreault's a game time decision, as per Paul Maurice. So I think you'll see Roslovic dressed and take the skate as you see Perreault. And they literally, when they mean game time, basically what someone tweeted out who was down in the scrum said, oh, that means like at 6:15, he will be dressed and taking the skate. So they'll put Roslovic in, I'm sure, just to check. And I don't think that line will miss a beat. And in fact,
it's not like Roslovic's a shrinking violet. He's a very strong kid. And just like he doesn't have a mean streak, but it doesn't mean he can't play, a very strong game.
The thing that Paul Maurice has raved about Roslovic, and this is where the Jets had some trouble last game, was his reads down the middle in the neutral zone have been fantastic all year. And Maurice has raved about him that way. And that's one area where the Wild pushed the play a little bit. They caught Winnipeg on some odd man rushes, and Roslovic also has the speed to get back. Yeah. So, I mean, it's given the assignments and how he matches lines, I don't think you'll see any kind of drop off in terms of production and everything. You just see maybe a slightly different dynamic on that third line. As far as most guys I just saw it now, just have skipped the morning skate, just a little extra room, a little extra rest, and it's believed that the power play has another, I heard, and I don't know the validity of this, but they said heard talk that there's another look they're going to put on the power play that was giving the Wild a bit of trouble last game. So it'll be interesting to see.
But I still think the Wild, knowing that they hung with them, will play a really good game. But I have always gotten the feeling with this series that Winnipeg's going to be great in their house. Minnesota's going to be great in their house. And it's going to be sort of like that home and home series for a while. That's what I really expect.
Maybe Winnipeg has to start the game like they finished the last game.
Yeah,
that's the key.
Maybe
the jitters are done. Opening night's over. Now let's get down to work.
Yeah, maybe Bufflin in front of the net. We know that has worked in the past. And the final game is the Kings and the Golden Knights. Golden Knights win 1-0 on Wednesday. Russ, the Doughty one-game absence is absolutely huge because, he was probably going to play 30 minutes in this game. And now that means even more minutes for, Dion Phaneuf and Alec Martinez. And I don't know whether that's going to spell doom for the Kings.
Well, I mean, we've seen these situations. It either kills you or it does make the team stronger and they rally around it. It'll be one or the other. It'll be interesting to see if maybe Kevin Gravel gets in there. I've liked his play. He had some sort of I want to say disease, for lack of a better term, early in the year that they've figured out. He had some sort of ailment, and he's been skating and he looks good. Could he be a missing guy for those minutes rather than just piling them on? Maybe, because I think they're going to have to distribute minutes equally. I don't think they could pile them on here. And what do we hear about Muzzin? Anything?
No, at least I haven't heard anything. I mean, if he's out for the series, that's definitely
that's huge.
It's very huge because he's a minutes.
So maybe Gravel is the guy that gets in there, and he does have a little bit of talent. This is salvageable because they only lost 1-0. At the end of the day, if the Kings just get their best guys to play really well, and Kopitar ratchets it up a little bit, and Carter's a little more aggressive, they could still win the game.
I think the matchup, the reason I thought the Kings were going to win this series is because Vegas has nobody to match up against Kopitar in terms of size, in terms of his, offensive abilities, and Carter as well. So you get those two big linchpins up the middle.
But keep Vegas off the power play. They do have a good power play.
Right. So yeah, so okay, we will watch a number of games tonight and over the weekend, and be back on Monday. I will be up in Toronto. So
are you warning people, Mike? Is that what you're doing?
What, that I'm going to be in Toronto?
Yeah.
It's not like King Kong is coming to town, right?
But actually, there was a question in the chat room, Mike, that you could answer.
Okay.
Do you think William Nylander should move to center, and do you think they should put Marner with Matthews?
Do I think they should? Yes. Will they? No. I think it's going to be Marlowe moving to the middle. I think they'll move Komarov up to the second line. So it'll be Komarov, Marlowe, and Marner on the second line. And they'll probably insert Andreas Janssen on the fourth line. I don't think Babcock does not fully trust William Nylander up the middle. And if you look at the fact that, he's going to be matching up against a Krejci or a Bergeron, that may, I think they'll put the experienced hand of Marlowe up the middle for one game, or for however long Kadri is out. We'll find that out this afternoon. So,
Mike, I just want to add in one thing. Yep. I got a tweet last night. It said, "Pete, I need you to hold Mike accountable tomorrow, please. He's done nothing all year but talk about how light-handed the NHL has been on Brad Marchand. Well, now the shoe's on the other foot. Let's see what he says." And he's a Matthews fan.
Okay, well, I mean,
I forgot to put that in earlier, and I said, well, and I know we had the discussion. We don't need to go back.
Right.
And I think, I express how I feel, and I think you're operating in the realms of what NHL player safety would do, not what we think should happen. I'll give you credit there. Like, I think you know as well as I do that there probably should be more, but what's expected is what we'll see.
Yeah, I
think too. Yep. Go ahead, Mike. You should answer first.
No, I think Kadri will be suspended. I think what he did was dumb. But Marchand play. I love players like Marchand. They play on the edge. I mean, you hate them because they're not playing for the team that you root for if you're a Leaf fan. But you love those. I mean, Darcy Tucker was my favorite Maple Leaf. So was Wendell Clark. I don't think Wendell Clark was ever deemed to be a cheap shot artist, or he was just a tough player. What Darcy Tucker was more that type of player. But Leaf fans still loved him. I mean, yeah, you want Marchands on your team, but when you're playing against him, you hate him. And he got underneath the skin of the Leafs yesterday, and he's going to continue to do that. That's what he does. No, what was it, Russ? You had one more thing.
Yeah, it looks like Hitchcock is going to remain as an advisor, and that's smart, because he is a great hockey mind. He does spot talent pretty well. So I think that's smart to keep him around.
Jarmo Kekalainen says that Alexander Wenberg is doubtful for Game 2 on Sunday. So that's a significant loss for the Blue Jackets, who are always challenged to score. So, stay tuned to my Twitter feed, to Russ's, to Peter's for news on all the different series. And I'm sure you'll enjoy our commentary this weekend, especially if Game 2 of Boston-Toronto gets as frisky as we think it might be. For Peter Tessier, for Russ Cohen, I'm Michael Agello. Thanks for watching. And remember, without the buzz, it's just hockey.